الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه الطيبين الطاهرين. اللهم لا سهل إلا ما جعلته سهلا وأنت يا حي يا قيوم تجعل الحزن إذا شئت سهلا. اللهم اجعل أعمالنا خالصة لوجهك الكريم. Lillahi ta'ala, have the good intentions. I ask Allah ta'ala to make this easy for myself and for you. I'm excited to have this lesson today, mashallah. This is something I wanted to give for a while. So, what we have here is a document about the manners of the student of knowledge. And also, as you'll see, there's a brief segment about some of the manners of the teacher. This information is taken from the explanation of Alfiyat al-Iraqi, manners of the student of knowledge. In the table of contents, as you can see, we have an introduction. It's a brief introduction, advice for the teacher, and then advice for the student of knowledge. Have the correct intention, be serious, practice the knowledge. That means apply the knowledge that you acquire, honor the teacher and be considerate to him, beware of arrogance and shyness, refrain from withholding the knowledge, desire to benefit, do not boast about having many teachers, do not pick and choose what knowledge you want and what you don't want, understand the knowledge that you learn. Introduction. Advice for the teacher. Al-Iraqi, may Allah have mercy upon him. And he is the Muhaddith and the Hafiz Abu al-Fadl Abdul Rahim Ibn al-Husayn al-Iraqi. He said that Al-Khatib said, when conveying his hadith in his sessions of dictation, it is expected that the muhaddith depends on his reliable sheikhs. He should not narrate from a liar, a heretic, or someone who is known for major sins. Now, first thing is that you're going to notice that this document is very much geared towards the student of hadith. And that's because it's taken from Alfiya of Al-Iraqi. Al-Iraqi is a hafiz of hadith, and this book is a book about hadith terminology. However, you'll see that the information, although it's specifically geared towards the student of hadith, is very applicable to the student of knowledge in general, and that's why we're going to go over it. So, Al-Khatib said, when conveying his hadith in his sessions of dictation, it is expected that the muhaddith depends on his reliable sheikhs. He should not narrate from a liar, a heretic, or someone who is known for major sins. So for us, that means when we give a lesson, if any of us are teaching, then we're going to convey from the reliable sheikhs, not from any person. Not anything that came to our ear, we will mention it in a class when we teach a person. Rather, we will teach the people what we've taken from the strong, reliable teachers. For example, what we heard from Sheikh Samir, Sheikh Nabil, Sheikh Jamil, and not just what we heard some brothers saying, some people who are not teachers. Someone said to us, I heard. This one said, I heard. All those people who said, I heard, you're not going to convey from them. If you want, you can just go and ask. Doesn't mean they're lying. But if those are not among the reliable teachers, then you, when you teach, are not going to just convey what they said. So it is expected that the muhaddith depends on his reliable sheikhs. He should not narrate from a liar, a heretic, or someone who is known for major sins. A heretic means mubtadi', an innovator, someone who has a bad belief. Al-Khatib said, in his sessions of dictation, the muhaddith should refrain from narrating what the people's minds cannot bear and what they might not understand, because we fear mistakes and delusions for them, and that they would liken Allah to His creation and attribute to Him what is impossible to be among His attributes. That is referring to the hadiths about the attributes whose apparent meanings dictate likening Allah to the creation and attributing body and organs to the eternal. It does not matter if those hadiths are authentic and have ways of explanation and proper meaning, for out of fear that the one who is ignorant of the true meanings would become misguided and interpret them according to their apparent meanings, or that he would deny them totally, they should not be narrated to anyone except those qualified to hear them. Those qualified to hear them, those who hear them and understand them properly, those who are well rooted in the proper belief. And who have enough knowledge to understand things that are being said. And who have understanding of matters so that they won't become confused. This issue is going to come back, because if you notice, Al-Iraqi is saying, or Al-Khatib is saying, and Al-Iraqi is copying from Al-Khatib, don't say everything to everyone. Not everything that's available to you, you should speak about it. So what is he saying here? He's saying that among the advice for the teacher is not to delve into issues that the people cannot understand. Here, to practice that, it's important for the teacher to know his audience. That's one of the disadvantages to giving lessons online, by the way. How do you know your audience? By meeting them, by being with them, by seeing their faces. Sometimes you can see in the face of the student that the student is confused or that the student is frustrated. And so you want to explain and make sure they understand. When I'm giving lessons online, for example, I cannot see your faces. And that's why I repeatedly say, I'm nervous about giving this lesson. And he was talking specifically about those hadiths of the Prophet ﷺ that are mutashabih, the ambiguous texts that have meanings other than the apparent meanings, like the hadith of the slave girl, the hadith of nuzul, of descending, and other texts that people take by their wrong meanings. We're afraid that if we narrate these hadiths to people who are not equipped to hear them, that they would liken Allah to the creations, or that they would deny them totally. So it's not a good idea for a teacher to just delve into matters that the students cannot understand. The one who's teaching needs to be mindful. He needs to pay attention to the students to make sure that they can understand what he's saying. The student, on the other hand, when he doesn't understand, he needs to ask. And we'll come back to talk about that, inshallah. Then Al-Khatib narrated a hadith that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, كفى بالمرء كذبا أن يحدث بكل ما سمع. The person has done enough lying by saying everything that he heard. This means that a person should not say everything that he knows, nor everything that he heard before verifying it. This hadith is also narrated by Imam Muslim. The old books like Al-Bukhari and Muslim were not authored to merely be put on the shelves for people to buy in mass quantities, and were not for laymen to simply read through them without foreknowledge. Once someone asked Sheikh Abdullah why those hadith scholars put some of those ambiguous hadiths in their books, hadiths that might lead a person to have a bad belief if he does not have good understanding. The Sheikh said, they did not think that people of your likes would be reading in their books. This means they did not think that people of such little knowledge and understanding would be reading through their books. Advice for the student of knowledge. 1. Have the correct intention. The first thing that the student of knowledge should do is have the correct intention. The Prophet ﷺ said, "Man ta'allama ilman mimma yubtagha bihi wajhullahi azza wa jal, la yata'allamuhu illa liyusiba bihi aradan min ad-dunya, lam yajid arfa al-jannati yawm al-qiyamah." Whoever learns some knowledge among what should be acquired only for the sake of Allah, and he only learns it so he can achieve some honor in the dunya, he will not find the smell of paradise on the day of judgment. This hadith is narrated by Abu Dawood and Ibn Majah from the route of Abu Hurairah. Al-Iraqi narrates from the route of Hammad ibn Salamah that he said, whoever seeks the hadith for other than the sake of Allah will be deceptively fooled by it. Al-Khatib said, if Allah willed for a person to dedicate himself to acquire the knowledge of hadith, he should ask Allah to empower him with the good intention, and that he acquire the knowledge. That is, that he would ask Allah to empower him to acquire the knowledge. He should rush to acquire that knowledge, not hesitate and not delay it. Some scholars mention that if a person wants to do a good deed, if he gets the inspiration to do a good deed, then he should do it right away and not delay it, because if he delays, he may not do it. Such as the one that it crosses his heart to pray, even 2 rak'ahs. What he should do? He should pray. Get up and pray. Go make wudu if he needs to make wudu, and pray his 2 rak'ahs, even if he keeps them short. Because if he delays, then he might not do it. 2, be serious. Let the student be very serious in seeking the knowledge, which is something that may develop after a person gets older and more mature, meaning the seriousness. And we've seen that. Like our students who go and study, sometimes their parents put them with the sheikhs to learn, and while they're young, they don't behave as well as they should. They joke around a lot. The teachers have to stop to shout at them. It's because they're young. But alhamdulillah, the teachers were patient with them, and they kept teaching them and kept teaching them, and their parents didn't obey them and take them out of the school. And then when they got older, I've seen personally, their beard started to grow, their backs started to straighten out, they carried their books in a nice manner, and they started to take the form of good sheikhs as the years passed. Al-Khatib said, among the first things that the student should have is an extreme determination about hearing the hadith and rushing to it and being with the sheikh. He just said hearing, but it means hearing the hadith. For us, we're not hadith students in particular, so for us it means the knowledge in general, especially the obligatory knowledge. He should come prepared and on time and sit in the class as he should sit. He should also wear the proper clothing, and that's very important. In our ma'had, our academy, and our jami'ah, our university, the students are not permitted to come to class just wearing jeans, regular shirts, sweatshirts, things like that. Makes a lot of sense. Even in the army, they don't let them wear anything they want to wear in work, depending on the type of work you do. You need to come in dressed properly. Depending on the type of work you do, you need to be wearing slacks, blazer, etc. That makes a big difference. The student of knowledge, he should dress properly. Should wear his kufi or turban, cover his head. The sister would wear her overgarment, her abaya, doesn't come to the class with the tight clothing. Now, this is not a discussion about whether it's good or bad, etc., etc. We're just talking about the student manners. It was narrated that the companions would sit before the Prophet ﷺ like one who has a bird upon his head. If you had a bird on your head and you didn't want the bird to fly away, how would you sit? Like that, the companions would sit with the Prophet ﷺ. Let the student be precise. In reference to learning the books of hadith, Ibn Salah said, that's Ibn Salah, not just Ibn Salah. Ibn Salah said, ضبطا لمشكلها وفهما لخفي معانيها, which means that he should acquire these books, putting the vowel markings on the letters that need them. Of course, I mean if he's learning in Arabic, putting the vowel markings on the letters that need them, like names which do not have patterns, names of people in particular, and acquiring the meanings of rare words. That's how he should study. Make sure that his words are all documented properly, that he put the harakat where he needs them. Sometimes you don't need to put the harakat. Like if the word is min, sometimes you don't need to put the kasra on the mim, because you know it, so you won't be confused about that. But sometimes you need to put the harakat. How would you know when you need to put the harakat? When you're really paying attention and understanding what's going on in the lesson. At that moment, you're going to say, oh, I better put my harakah here, because later on, I'm not going to know what this means. I'm not going to know what this word is if I don't. And the student of knowledge is going to put the effort to acquire the meanings of those rare words. Now, that's in reference to the hadith. There's words in there that are expected to be unknown by many. But even the one who's not studying hadith, it still applies to him. Like those of you who are studying Arabic. How does a person study Arabic and not search for the meanings of words? This is baffling, and we do have students like that. Students who are studying Arabic and they don't search for the meanings of words. How is that? It all depends on the person's ambition. Al-Iraqi narrated from the route of Yahya ibn Kathir that he said, the knowledge is not reached by the body being relaxed, meaning that one acquires the knowledge by physical effort. Therefore, the one who wants to be a diligent student of knowledge should not study laying down, or is that lying down, and drinking. Especially that drinks, water is heavy, holds the stomach down, will make a person drowsy, relaxed. Sometimes when the students of knowledge want to study, they walk back and forth studying. They walk, that means they're not sitting. They're pacing. Walk back and forth, that means they're pacing as they study. Or they may drink coffee, or find a quiet place and recite so that they can hear themselves. And they do not sit down until they get tired. Have the ambition when you study. And what I'm saying to you is not just for the person who's in school. You don't have to be in school. You don't have to be in the ma'had or in the jami'ah to study the knowledge in a good way. You could be home, especially if you are not working, like if you're young, still not married, your parents are helping you by supporting you. Take the time now to study the knowledge of the religion. And even if you are studying in the university, take the time to study the knowledge of the religion. Salahuddin al-Ayyubi, he was a general. He was a sultan. You know what he used to do? He used to study. He used to memorize. As a sultan, I'm sure he's busier than all of us. Probably busier than all of us put together. And he used to memorize. And he used to go to the sessions of knowledge. He used to listen to the sessions of knowledge. Some of those students of knowledge, they do not sit down until they get tired. Then they may sit down and keep studying, not sit down and stop studying. Then after that, they may lay down, or is it lie down, and study because they are tired. But don't lay down and study from the beginning. Sure, if you're not going to study at all, if you're a person whose ambition when it comes to studying is at least enough so that you pick up a book, but not so much that you would pace back and forth, sure, laying down to study is better than nothing. But have more ambition and don't lay down and study. Sit up and study. And have more ambition than that. Don't sit up and study. Stand up and study. Pace. Go back and forth. And raise your voice also. I remember one student of knowledge, he used to attempt to memorize without speaking, like just by looking at the page. And he did not get far. When you study, even if you're not memorizing, if you're just reviewing, raise your voice and hear yourself. We learned that Sheikh Abdullah would travel great distances barefoot to get the knowledge. Al-Iraqi narrated from Imam Ash-Shafi'i that he said, لا يطلب هذا العلم من يطلبه بالتملل وغنى النفس فيفلح ولكن من طلبه بذلة النفس وضيق العيش وخدمة العلم أفلح. The one who seeks the knowledge nonchalantly, that means like carelessly, in a very relaxed and laid back manner, as if he's bored. So the one who seeks the knowledge nonchalantly or while living lavishly will not be successful. Rather, the one who seeks it while living humbly and roughly and while serving the knowledge will be successful. For example, he sleeps little or sleeps on the floor so that he will sleep less, i.e., he does not sleep on the bed so that the soft mattress will keep him relaxed. He eats little, for example, enough to stay alive, for example. Doesn't have to be to that extent. And he eats what benefits his studying. He eats what promotes his memory, like raisins and honey and za'atar, and what promotes his energy. And he refrains from what hinders his studying. Among what scholars have mentioned to be food that a student of knowledge may refrain from is beef and fool. The beef and the fool. And then a person can know himself also. Meaning, if a person knows about himself that if he eats something, it disturbs his concentration or it makes him sleepy, then let him refrain from that if he wants to study. Which raisins? Golden raisins or dark raisins? From what I know, it's all good. Those golden raisins, black raisins, also the big raisins. There's some raisins that are bigger than the usual common raisin. All of those, from what I know and from my experience, they all work. Not prunes, they're raisins. They taste just like raisins, but they're just bigger. Refrain from beef and fool. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't mean don't ever eat beef and don't ever eat food. But a person might find that some of that disturbs his ability or hinders his ability to concentrate or might make him susceptible to the whispers of the jinn. It is mentioned by some scholars that you will not get some of the knowledge until you give the knowledge all of yourself. 3. Practice the knowledge. Let the student of knowledge apply the hadith that he learned. And that is, for us, apply the knowledge that you learn. Apply the knowledge that you learn. Al-Iraqi narrated from the route of Imam Ali that a man said, O Messenger of Allah, what will protect me from ignorance being evidence against me? What will protect me from ignorance being evidence against me? The Prophet ﷺ said, Al-Ilm, the knowledge. So the man said, what will protect me from knowledge being evidence against me? So the Prophet ﷺ said, Al-Amal, application, to practice what you've learned. Al-Iraqi narrated from the route of Bishr ibn al-Harith that he said, O people, pay the zakah of hadith. Out of every 200 hadiths you have, apply 5 of them. He narrates from the route of Waqi', if you want to memorize the hadith, then apply it. And for those of you who are studying Arabic, if you want to build your vocabulary, then speak. Memorize words and then use them. Make a list of vocabulary. Every word you don't know, write it down. He narrated from Ahmad ibn Hanbal, I never wrote down a hadith except that I applied it. To the extent that a hadith passed by me that the Prophet ﷺ did the cupping, hijama, and gave the one who did the cupping a dinar, and so I gave the one who did the cupping for me a dinar, because that is what came in the hadith. 4. Honor the teacher and be considerate to him. Let the student honor the Shaykh. Al-Iraqi narrated from the route of Mughira, we used to have reverence for Ibrahim like we used to have reverence for the ruler. He narrated from Al-Bukhari that he said, I never saw anyone who had more respect for the hadith scholar than Yahya ibn Ma'in. Also, let the student beware of seeking too much from his shaykh until the shaykh becomes annoyed or bored. Al-Khatib said, when the student talks to his teacher, it is necessary that he seeks his pardon and does not annoy him, for annoyance alters the understanding, spoils the manners, and transforms the disposition. That means it changes the person's nature. Ismail ibn Khalid was among the most mannerly, and the people never ceased to continually come at him until his manners became bad. He narrates from Muhammad ibn Sirin that a man asked him about a hadith when he wanted to leave. That is, Muhammad ibn Sirin, the tabi'i, the student of the companions, who was a mujtahid also, he wanted to leave. And then while he wanted to leave, someone came to ask him about a hadith. And Ibn Sirin recited a line of poetry to him. He said, إنك إن كلفتني ما لم أطق ساءك ما سرك مني من خلقي. Which means, certainly, if you charge me with something I cannot bear, then the manners that used to please you will become bad. It means he wanted to leave. So then the person stopped him, and he's only a human being. So he felt some annoyance in his heart. MashaAllah. A person who doesn't learn about these matters, he might do something like that. He might annoy his teacher. He might not let his teacher breathe. So be mindful about that. As a student of knowledge, there's a fine line that you need to tread. Know when to push and know when to back off. And as a teacher, also, a person shouldn't take this and just say, well, I'm just going to be impatient with people. When I want to leave, I want to leave. No. Because as a teacher, we want to display the good manners and get the reward from Allah. So still, you want to try to be patient with the people. Ibn Salah said, it is feared for the one who annoys his shaykh that he will be prevented from the benefit of his knowledge. Al-Iraqi said, in following up with that, I have witnessed that. Our shaykh, Abu al-Abbas al-Mardawi, became old and unable to dictate the hadiths to us, meaning unable to do it as he used to. As he's got older, so he doesn't have the energy he used to have. He said, we would hear them from him. We used to learn from him, take from him, but we used to keep this issue in mind. So we used to read only little on him. One of our peers read on him a book called Al-Umdah, and he took a long time. So the Shaykh said to him, may Allah not give you the life to narrate this from my route. Then that student died shortly thereafter, so he did not benefit from that knowledge. So Al-Iraqi is saying, I have personally seen the truthfulness of what Ibn Salah is saying. Ibn Salah said, it is feared for the one who annoys his shaykh that he will not that he will be prevented from the benefit of his knowledge. 5. Beware of arrogance and shyness. Let one beware of letting arrogance and shyness prevent him from seeking the knowledge. The arrogance will prevent him from seeking the knowledge because he will be too proud to ask, too stubborn. Maybe he does not want to face the reality of his own mistake, for example, or his own ignorance. His arrogance will stop him from learning. And the shyness will prevent him from learning because he won't ask when he needs to ask. And this happens many times. And the women used to ask the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam about issues pertaining to menstruation and sickness, bleeding. Aisha praised the women of Al-Madinah that they were reserved women, shy women, but not when it came to the knowledge. She said that the women of Al-Madinah did not let their shyness prevent them from acquiring the knowledge. Al-Bukhari narrated from Mujahid that he said, the shy person and the arrogant person do not reach the knowledge. 6. Refrain from withholding the knowledge. Let the student refrain from getting something from the sheikh, then keeping it for himself, so that he would be the only one with it. For this is something blameworthy. And that's what some people do. Some of our brothers and sisters might do that. They acquire some knowledge and they don't share easily. Because it could be because they like to feel that, they like for the people to feel that they are knowledgeable and that the people need to come to them. So they don't want to give out the knowledge they have, so that someone else won't have that knowledge. If you've taken a book, then why did you take that book? Just so you can say, I took that book? Give it to another person also, so he can take the book. Like you took the book. You learned a case, teach it to a person, so that he could have that knowledge like you have that knowledge. There's a benefit in spreading the knowledge. It increases. More people will have knowledge and you will understand better. One of the secrets behind teaching is that you understand the knowledge better when you teach it. Refraining from giving some information was narrated about a group of the early Imams, and Allah knows what their intentions were in that. Malik said, among the blessings of the hadiths is that some of the people will benefit others. This means that they do not keep the hadiths to themselves. Al-Iraqi narrated from Yahya ibn Ma'in that he said, whoever is stingy with the hadith and keeps what he hears from the people will not be successful. Ishaq ibn Rahawayh, the Shaykh of Al-Bukhari, said, we have seen people who withheld what they heard, and by God they were not successful. Al-Khatib said, what we love is the benefit of the hadith for the one who has not heard it. For the one who has not heard it. The reference to the sheikh that gave the hadith, and drawing attention to their different narrations. The least of what is in that is advice for the student, the preservation of the knowledge, the great reward, and the good mentioning. And this is one of the advices of Shaykh Hussam, rahimahullah. He said, La taktumil ilm. Do not withhold the knowledge. Al-Khatib narrates with his own chain to Ibn Abbas that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, إخواني تناصحوا في العلم ولا يكتم بعضكم بعضا فإن خيانة الرجل في علمه أشد من خيانته في ماله. O my brothers, advise each other with the knowledge, and let not any of you hold it back from the others. For surely a man's betrayal in his knowledge is worse than his betrayal in his money. Al-Iraqi narrated from Sufyan al-Thawri that he said, let some of you benefit others. Al-Iraqi said that this proves that what was narrated about al-Thawri and others who were previously mentioned, that they withheld the knowledge, meaning sometimes they would withhold the knowledge, is in reference to withholding that knowledge from whomever they did not see qualified to get it. That's what we talked about in the beginning of the class. Or from whoever does not accept what is correct when he is guided to it, etc. Al-Iraqi narrated from Al-Khalil ibn Ahmad that he said to Abu Ubaidah Ma'mar ibn al-Muthanna, the author of Majazul Quran. Ma'mar ibn al-Muthanna, he's the author of Majazul Quran, and he's from the time of the Salaf. He said to him, do not correct a mistake of a person who is impressed with himself so that he will benefit from your knowledge and then take you as an enemy. This is one of the reasons why some of our sheikhs say not to go and teach so-and-so. Or they say, for example, just teach him the obligatory knowledge. Don't teach him more. And this is why sometimes when you debate with a person, especially online, you want to stop the debate. Because that person occasionally actually wants to learn from you. He doesn't want to agree with you. He wants to learn from you. He wants to get information from you. Why? So that he would be that much tougher next time on the next person. One time I had a debate with a hadith denier. Among them, they considered him like, one of their top guys. So I had a discussion with this guy, and we just kept going and kept going until I really got the impression that this guy only wants to learn from me. He wants to know what all my proofs are so that he could study them and then next time be even tougher on the next one who he wants to debate with about rejecting the hadiths of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Even now, there's on my Facebook page, there's an atheist who's been following me now. Having that in mind, there's some things I'm not posting. I could block him, but right now I don't want to block him. However, I need to keep in mind that this guy, there's a lot of information that he does not deserve. Like we've worded it here. La yastahiqqu. He doesn't deserve to get that knowledge. 7. Desire to benefit. Al-Iraqi said, let the ambition of the student be acquiring the benefit, whether he got that benefit from a high chain, meaning a short chain, or a low chain, meaning a longer chain. And let him not be too arrogant to copy from someone who is lower or less than him, so that he will benefit. That's very important. Because sometimes a person who has less knowledge than you, he has information you don't have. So because you have more knowledge than that person, are you now too good to take from him? Especially if he's good? If he makes lots of mistakes, that's another thing. But because you're a sheikh, for example, and he's not a sheikh, so you can't sit in his class, for example, and take his lesson? You can. He narrated, that's Al-Iraqi, from Sufyan that Waqi' said, a person will not be a scholar until he takes from those higher than him, and from those lower than him, and from those who are like him. Ibn al-Mubarak used to copy from those lower than him. He was questioned about that, and so he said, perhaps the word that because of it I would be safe came in what was not my narration. This means that maybe because of a word I will be safe in the hereafter, and that word did not come in my narration, so I am taking from him. I'm learning from someone who has what I don't have. Maybe he has one word that will save me in the afterlife. 8. Do not boast about having many teachers. Let the student beware of letting his ambition be having many sheikhs, for the mere sake of saying that he has many sheikhs, so that he would have good mentioning among the people. There's no problem with adhering to one sheikh if he is an authentic sheikh. A person once asked Sheikh Samir why he did not go out to another scholar to learn. He said, we have not exhausted what Sheikh Abdullah has. But if someone did exhaust the knowledge of his teacher, then he moves on to the next teacher. It's good for a person to stick to a teacher if he's a good teacher and exhaust his knowledge. What that means when we say he exhausts his knowledge, it means basically he becomes his companion. He becomes the companion of that scholar and he exhausts his knowledge. He sticks to that scholar and exhausts his knowledge. When he does that, then he moves to the next one. What's recommended for the student of knowledge who wants to become a scholar. And that's a good goal to have, by the way. Don't listen to a person who says, don't intend to become a scholar. Why not? Why not intend to become a scholar? There's nothing wrong with that. That's praiseworthy. Don't we intend to become awliya? Yani don't we wish for ourselves that we would become pious people? High-ranking pious people? Sure. And that we should work towards that? Don't people wish for themselves that they would be martyrs, for example? And then they strive for that? So why is there a problem with a person wishing for himself to be a scholar and then striving for that? There's no problem with that at all. So what the student of knowledge should do if he wishes to be a scholar, if he's ambitious to be a scholar, is that first he starts with the scholars of his town. One by one, he exhausts their knowledge. Until he's exhausted the knowledge of all the scholars of his town, then he moves to the next town. And he learns from them one by one until he exhausts their knowledge, and then he moves to the next town. Until he exhausts the knowledge of the scholars of his country, then he moves to the next country. And like that, he goes across the lands. You said, I heard that you shouldn't do that and do it to be accepted by Allah. That a person should not intend to be a scholar? You heard that a person should not intend to be a scholar? Intending to be a scholar? Certainly it's a good thing for a person to intend to be a scholar. Why not? Of course, when we say intend to be a scholar, we mean he intends to be a scholar for the sake of Allah. Sure, certainly he should. No problem in that. There's no problem with a person striving to be a scholar. Like there's no problem with a person striving to be a wali, and there's no problem with a person striving to be a Sufi, and there's no problem with a person striving to be a martyr. Fi sabilillahi ta'ala. All of it for the sake of Allah. Ibn Salah said, whoever has wasted his time in that, meaning in going to lots of teachers just so that he could say he has lots of teachers, has not been granted tawfiq, God-given success. Irfan said, we have heard people saying, we have copied the book of so-and-so. Yani they say, we've copied the book of so-and-so, and we copied the book of so-and-so. This type of person is not successful. Do you know one of the reasons why Al-Bukhari's book of hadith is stronger than Muslims? There's a number of reasons why. One of the reasons why Al-Bukhari's book is stronger than Muslims' book is because the narrators that Al-Bukhari relied on, the people in the chains of narration that Al-Bukhari relied on, Al-Bukhari paid special attention to select the hadiths from the people who stuck to their sheikhs, who stuck to their teachers. Because this narrator is stronger. Who's stronger? It's easy to recognize that the one who actually stayed with Shaykh, and sat with him, and accompanied him, and got to know him, and spent time with him, that he's a stronger narrator from him. He understands him better. He knows what he means by what he says, for example. He knows what he narrates very well. And here's a reason why I'm going into this, because some people, they call us a cult, saying that you only stick to Sheikh Abdullah. And among those people is a man, his name is Abdul Rahman As-Sandalani. I'm saying his name because he makes a point to discourage people from learning from us. And among the things that he says is those people are a cult. All they do is take from Sheikh Abdullah. While the one who stick with his sheikh, if he's a good sheikh, first of all, the issue is he a good sheikh or not? And for sure, Sheikh Abdullah is a good sheikh. And the one who sticks with his sheikh is not dispraised. It doesn't make him a cult member. Being able to name many contemporary scholars doesn't mean that you have a lot of knowledge, and it doesn't mean that you're more guided than a person who sat with a sheikh, who sat, for example, with Sheikh Abdullah, and didn't learn from somebody else. Because most likely, and maybe some people won't like for me to say this, but I'm going to say it, most likely, one of the students of Sheikh Abdullah who sat with Sheikh Abdullah and learned probably 99% of what he knows from Sheikh Abdullah and not from someone else is, I don't know how many more times, 100 times stronger than some of these people who are going around and meeting this one and that one. He went to Yemen, he went to Egypt, he went to I don't know where. Irfan also said, we used to go to this one and listen to him and hear from what was not from the other one. Then we went to Al-Kufa and we stayed there for 4 months. And had we wanted to write down 100,000 hadiths, we could have. We wrote 5,000 hadiths, and we did not accept any hadiths from anyone unless it was through dictation, not through his memory, etc. Till the end of his statement that I cut off some of it. Ibn Salah said, when Abu Hatim al-Razi said, if you are writing from the Shaykh, write everything, and if you are teaching research, this is not included in what Irfan said above. It means that while you are in the status of being a student, get all the knowledge you can, even if at the time you do not scrutinize. Get it before the Shaykh travels or dies, or before you travel or die. However, do not give back everything you took, just give back what is correct. This statement is very specifically geared towards the student of hadith. And keep in mind that that statement was made hundreds of years ago. So those were students of knowledge who were going to the scholars of hadith, and books of hadith were still being documented. So they're saying, learn, go to all those scholars, take as much as you can. But before you give back, before you teach, check the information that you got. While you're learning, get as much as you can. But when you teach, check the information before you give it back. Just give back what's correct. And that still applies to us. Because, for example, You might be, let's say, one of you is taking notes now. Don't just turn around after taking your notes and just give the lesson just like that. You need to review. Review your notes. Make sure you don't have any mistakes. See if there's anything in there you're doubtful about. Ask someone, what does this mean? Did you get this? Etc. And then you teach the lesson that you got. At the time you're taking it, you write. You take your notes. Keep going. Keep going. When you want to teach it back, check it. This is very important. Some people, they give lesson without reviewing first. Don't give lesson without reviewing first. Al-Khatib named this issue the chapter of those who said, every person is copied from. What does that mean? Because someone might misunderstand this and take this the wrong way. This doesn't mean go and learn from everyone who has something to say. In the first place, you're going to take knowledge from those who are reliable, not from any person who opens his mouth. What it means is what we've been explaining, that when you're going to these reliable teachers, you sit, you take the knowledge, you take the lesson from them, you take the knowledge, you take and take and take and take and take. But before you give it back, you scrutinize, you check, you review, etc. It is possible that what Ar-Razi meant was to include in your writing everything you hear and not to pick and choose what you want to write and what you do not want to write. Or it could mean to take everything from the Shaykh, but when you want to convey what you took from him, look into what you took. It could be that the muhaddith has the intent to acquire all the different narrations of a hadith and put together all the different pieces of the hadiths. For example, the narration of a battle could be the merger of many narrations. Like if we learn about what happened at the time of Uthman or Umar, and we learn it as one flowing story. That doesn't mean it came like that. It means that somebody took a lot of time to study and put all the pieces together. And because of that, he will have many shaykhs. He got many narrations so that he could put all of that together, and because of that, he got many shaykhs. And there's no problem with that. But getting many shaykhs just for the purpose of saying, I have many shaykhs, is bad. He narrated from Abu Hatim that he said, had we not written down the hadith in 60 different ways, we would not have comprehended it. Among those who are described with having many shaykhs is Sufyan al-Thawri, Abu Dawood al-Tayalisi, Yunus ibn Muhammad, al-Mu'addib, and others. 9. Do not pick and choose. A student should listen and write all of the book or volume completely and not select what he wants to write, because perhaps one day he will need to narrate what he chose not to write, and then he will regret that. Al-Iraqi narrated from Ibn al-Mubarak that he said, whenever I picked and chose what I wanted to write from a scholar, I regretted it. It's Ibn al-Mubarak, he's a mujtahid. He also narrated from him that he said, there was never any goodness that came from a selector. He said, I want this, I don't want that. He also narrated from Yahya ibn Ma'in that he said, the one who selects what he writes will regret, and the one who writes down everything will not regret. Whenever the student cannot tell between the hadiths that he already acquired and the hadiths the shaykh is mentioning, then the student should write down everything. However, there are some circumstances, some instances when a student would select and not write down everything the shaykh has to say. It may be that the student or the shaykh is a traveler and there is no time to write down everything, so he just takes from him what he is missing. But he needs to know what he's missing. So he's not like the one we just talked about. Sometimes the student, because he didn't memorize, he doesn't know what he already has. He doesn't know the difference between what he has already and what the Shaykh is giving. Also, the one who has a talent for successfully choosing what he wants can do that. Otherwise, let him write down everything. He narrated from Yahya ibn Ma'in that he said, Ibn Wahb gave me 2 books from Muawiyah ibn Salah, and out of 500 or 600 hadiths, I chose all the worst because at that time I did not have the knowledge. Let the student use the original books of the sheikhs to copy from. This was the habit of the scholars of hadith. They used to teach from the book of the sheikh, for the sheikh's book is the origin, the asl. The benefit of using the sheikh's book is that it is good for comparison, but let the sheikh not give his copy to the one who is irresponsible. And we used to do that with some of the sheikhs. We would take the lesson. We all have the same copy, but what does the teacher have that we don't have? His notes on the side. So he'd be reading his notes to us on the side. Qala Shaykh. Shaykh Abdullah said, and then we'll be copying. What did the Shaykh say? So some of those sheikhs, we would ask them at the end of the class, can we take your book, please, so that we can check what you have with what we wrote? And then we would take his book and we would just read his notes that he had on the side. And of course, you have to give it back, or else he's not going to do that anymore. Those books are so precious. Your copy is very precious. Your nuskha madbuta is very, very precious. Your nuskha madbuta, that means your verified copy. That's your copy of the book that you took and you verified it. You verified all the harakat and everything. It's not the same as a mere copy of the book that you can buy from the store. That nuskha madbuta, you take very good care of it, and I'm reminding myself. I lost one of my books, and to this day I still make dua to Allah that it will come back to me. Subhanallah. I can find a copy of the book anywhere. From the internet, I can download copies, and actually I have. I can buy copies of the book from anywhere. But none of them is my nuskha. None of them is my copy, where I put my harakat and put my notes on the side. Or drew attention to a mistake in the book. Or drew attention to where some different people had different versions of the book, different copies, and so their copy maybe had a word that mine didn't, or my copy had a word that theirs didn't. So then we're all reading, and then someone would say, my copy says such and such, and we all take note of that. Someone would say, my copy doesn't have that, and we all take note of that. 10, understand the knowledge. And the student should not settle with just hearing the hadith and writing it without understanding it. Like the student of Arabic language. How does the student of Arabic language settle with just sitting in class and not understanding so much of what's going on and not studying the words? I know that some of you are studying Arabic language. Either you're in school and so you're studying Arabic, or you might just be studying Arabic, on the side as much as you can or something like that. So if you want to be a serious student, you're not going to let any of that pass by. You don't want to let something pass without understanding it. How would the person who's studying Arabic let this happen to himself? Al-Iraqi narrates from Abu Asim al-Nabil that he said, the student of knowledge should not merely acquire the hadith without understanding it. And this is something that the Mu'tazilah did. He said, for someone to be considered strong in hadith without having studied is stupidity in reality. Number 11, memorize and review. Let the student's memorization of the hadith be in steps, little by little, and he should not put on himself what he cannot bear. In the sound hadith, the Prophet ﷺ said, خُذُوا مِنَ الْأَعْمَالِ مَا تُطِيقُونَ. Choose the deeds that you can bear. This is narrated by Al-Bukhari. He, meaning Al-Iraqi, narrated from Al-Thawri that he said, I used to go to Al-A'mash and Mansur and I would hear only 4 or 5 hadiths. Then I would leave out of fear that they would become numerous and then I would lose them. And he narrates from Az-Zuhri that he said, whoever seeks all the knowledge at once will lose it all at once. Rather, the knowledge is acquired a hadith or 2 at a time. He also said, this knowledge, if you took it in abundance, will overcome you. Rather, take it throughout the days and nights in an easy way, and you will be successful. And what helps to maintain memorization is reviewing. He narrated from Ali ibn Abi Talib, review the hadiths. If you do not, they will be erased. He narrated from Ibn Mas'ud that he said, review the hadith, for surely it stays alive by review. And he narrates something similar from Ibn Abbas and Abu Sa'id al-Khudri. Sheikh Khalil ibn Ahmed, that's the Sheikh of Sibawayh, said, review your knowledge and you will remember what you have and you will benefit from what you don't have. Yes, the review is very important. He narrated from Abdullah ibn al-Mu'taz, and here I'm not sure if there's a shadda on the zay, if it's al-Mu'taz or just al-Mu'taz. I'm not sure. He said, whoever stayed in the review sessions of the scholars will not forget what he learned and will benefit from what he did not know. He's talking about reviewing with others or sitting with someone who reviews. Let the muhaddith always have mastery. He narrated from Abdul Rahman ibn Mahdi that he said, memorization is the mastery. And Allah knows best. Any question?